Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Discriminating Gamer. You know, I once tried to climb that tower in Paris, but I fell. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Red Flag Over Paris from GMT Games. Hello everybody, we'll get back to the review in just a second. I just want to take a moment to ask you to go ahead and check out and subscribe to my other channel, that is Cody Carlson PhD, where we talk about military history and books on history and fun things like that. Please check that out, please subscribe, and now, back to the review. Red Flag Over Paris from GMT Games takes place during the Paris Commune at the end of the franco-prussian war in 1871. One side takes on the role of the communards as they attempt to spread their socialist philosophy throughout Paris and essentially secede from France, and of course the Versailles government, which was determined to restore order to the nation's capital. The game board is a representation of a map of the city of Paris, as well as various political and social institutions which influenced it. Now, you have what they refer to as crisis dimensions. Now, these crisis dimensions are different kinds of areas in which the communards and the Versailles government were competing. Now, on the left side of the board, you have the political sphere. You have the green square, which represents various political institutions in France. And then you also have the orange triangle, which represents the more kind of social institutions, the church, press, etc. On the right side of the board, you have the various spaces of Paris in the purple diamond, and then you also have the kind of forts around Paris that are in the teal circle. There's going to be a deck of objective cards, and there's also going to be a deck of strategy cards that will be played. Each player is going to go ahead and grab their unique final crisis card, which they're going to set off to the side at the beginning of the game, which they can use for the game or at the very end of it. More on that later. And you're also going to collect a number of cubes and little cylinders, and then also you're going to place your scoring marker on the score track. You're going to go ahead and place the markers along the momentum track as well, and a few other goodies. Now, at the top of the board is the crisis track. Now, the crisis track has various spaces which have cubes within it and then some bonus cubes above it. Now, essentially, throughout the game, as you're placing cubes, you're going to take them from this crisis track as you're moving further and further in your own unique direction. Now, if you break into the final spot there's going to be some repercussions. You're going to lose some political points, but you may need to break in there in order to get those cubes. Now, you're also going to have the momentum tracks. During the course of the game, you'll have the opportunities to bolster your momentum tracks, which will access more and more cubes that will become available to you, but it might also open up cubes for your opponent as well, and some other kooky things might ensue. Now, at the beginning of every round, each player is going to be dealt 4 strategy cards and 2 objective cards. You're going to look at both of the objective cards, one of the spots on the board that you believe you want to control at the end of this round. You're going to go ahead, select which one you want, and then the second card you're going to discard. It's out of the game. Next, you're going to determine initiative. This is kind of based on who has the most political power, political points at the time. You're going to go ahead, figure who that is, and then that person with initiative can either agree to go first or second. Next, players are going to alter playing strategy cards. Now, you're each going to play 3 of the strategy cards, and as you play a card, you can. There's 3 different kinds of cards. There's cards that favor the Versailles government, there's cards that favor the communards, and then there are cards that are neutral, can be used by either. So when you play a card, you can, if it's your color, you can either play it for your side, or you can play it for the number of operational points up in the corner. Now, if you decide to go ahead and play it for those operational points, then you can go ahead and place or remove various cubes around the city, or you can play for that operation and do whatever the operation says. Now, all things being equal, you can place cubes in any space provided you don't already have 4 cubes there. 4 cubes is the maximum you can have in any one space. Now, you can also play, for operational points, you can remove your opponent's cubes. Now, if you remove a cube from the political sphere, it's fine, you just take it. But if you remove it from the military sphere, that can be a little bit trickier. So if you want to remove an enemy's cube in the military sphere, a few things have to occur. You're wanting to build up a number of points. Now, you get points per spaces you control that are adjacent to that space. If you are located in that space, you get another point. If you control that space, you get another point. And you can even spend another operations point to give you a number point. Now, if you have 3 or more of these points, then you've succeeded. You can go ahead and remove the enemy's cube. But if you don't have that many points, you have to draw another card from the strategy deck. And then if your points are, I believe, greater, I think it's equal to or greater than the point value of that card, you succeed. If it's less than that card, you fail. Now, there's other things you can do with strategy cards. For instance, you can just discard the card in order to move yourself up on your momentum track. Now, as I say, if you move up the momentum track, it's going to free up more cubes for you. But if you get far enough, it may also free up a cube for your opponent. So you got to keep an eye on that. You can also play a card to activate the top card of the discard pile. So if your opponent has played a card that had your event on it, you can then go ahead and discard a card in order to activate that particular event, which may help you. Now, as I say, you have the final crisis cards, which are very powerful. They have 4 operational points and also very powerful events. You can choose to play those at any time as well. Now, you also, along with this, you also have cube pools. Now, the Versailles player has a cube pool. Whenever they have cubes that they're not using, they just go to the cube pool. But with the Communard player, if they're advancing along the momentum track, that's how they open up spaces for them to keep cubes. So if a cube's removed, it can just go to one of those pools. But if your pool is full for the Communards and one of your cubes is removed, it's out of the game. Now, after you have alternated between 3 cards, you should have 1 card left over. You're going to go ahead and you're going to place this card face down beside you. That's going to be a card you're going to use in the final crisis. More on that later. Now, there are some spots on the board that are called pivotal spaces, and these pivotal spaces are going to allow you to do certain bonuses. They'll allow you to kind of manipulate the board in certain ways, change cubes around, remove cubes, do all sorts of funky things. If you control one of these things, the player with initiative can decide in what order they will be resolved. Next, you're going to go ahead and reveal the objective card that you had set aside at the beginning of the round. If you control that space, you can do then whatever the event says and hopefully advance your cause even further. Now, if after 3 rounds or if both sides have breached the final crisis spot, you're going to go to your final crisis. Now, the final crisis is kind of a mini round. Essentially, you're going to have the cards you set aside, and you're also going to have your own final crisis card. Essentially, you're going to want to discard down to a total of 3 cards because you're going to play 3 more rounds at the end of during this final crisis. Now, during the final round, you're going to play your cards pretty much as normal, except you're not using the operation points. You're just playing your cards for their event. So you go ahead, you play through those events, you get to the end of that track, you resolve pivotal space bonus actions, and then you're going to go ahead and again do your objectives, find out who has scored their objective spaces. Now, if a player has reached the end of their respective momentum track, there's also some bonuses. For the Communards, it's usually political power. For the Versailles government, it's usually a military power. Now, scoring in this game is essentially a tug of war. You've got the 2 victory point tokens. One is political victory token, one is military victory token. And you're kind of, again, doing a tug of war. But, critically, this is how victory works in the game. If, at the end of the game, after all the scoring is done, the Communards have more political power than the Versailles government has military power, the Communards win. But if the Versailles government has more military power than the Communards have political power, then the Versailles government wins. So whoever has the most power with that system wins. Red flag over Paris. So I've only played this game solo. And the rules say you should be really familiar with the 2-player game before you try the solitaire game. So my first game playing this by myself, I actually played it with 2 hands. I tried to play each side to learn the game. And then I went on, when I played it again, I started playing it thereafter solo with the solitaire rules. Couple of things. First of all, this is an area control game that is based on the same system that gave us Fort Sumter. I believe Mark Herman designed it. I think it says his name in here as the system designer. He's credited. I really liked Fort Sumter. I thought Fort Sumter, again, it was almost like a Twilight Imperium, or pardon me, Twilight Struggle, very different game, Twilight Struggle Light. Area control, you're using cards for events or operational points. It was a very tight game, and it's a fairly short game. It's, less than an hour to play. So I was a big fan of Fort Sumter. Still got it in my collection. And so when I saw this Red Flag Over Paris coming out, my initial thought was this looks like it could really be cool because it's that same system, and the theme here is cool. This is a very interesting subject, the Paris Commune, the fight for Paris. Very interesting. Now, I should point out there's a few other little things I didn't mention. You can put up barricades, which make it harder to remove your cubes. There's a few other little things going on here, so that wasn't a complete rules overview I gave. But the theme and the system, I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a really cool game. And so I sit down and I play it, and I'm working through it. And I'll tell you, it does kind of lose something when you're playing by yourself, because to me, when I play Fort Sumter, one of the things I really like is you've got that hidden information. You don't know what the other guy's objective card is. You don't know what the other guy, you don't know what cards they're putting away for the end of the game. And so that kind of hidden information and trying to outguess the other player, I kind of missed that in the solitaire games I played. And so I'd like to play this one with an opponent at some point, and I'm sure I will at some point. But having said that, I really enjoyed this game. I really think this game is smart, clever, like I say, good. It's a good mechanical system, but then it's also married to this very cool theme. And of course, you've got all the various cards, strategy cards that kind of give you some flavor. They revolve around people or events or what have you, and it does a good job of evoking the theme. At the same time, it's a tough game and it's a tight game, and it's nasty. And one of the things I really like about it and like about the system is it's a mean game, right? There's kind of take that. There's kind of, somebody's obviously trying to maneuver themselves somewhere, and somebody can screw them over by removing their units. But what makes this game work, what fundamentally makes this game exciting and tense, because you would think just through the rules and just by reading the rules that, oh, well, I can put cubes out, I take his cubes out, okay, yada 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 yada. But the way the cubes are distributed is so limited that you can't do everything you want to do. And you have to make those tough decisions about how do I interact here? How do I interact with a card? Do I play it for the operations? Do I play it for the event? What's going to benefit me? Ooh, that looks like a really cool event, but I don't have the cubes for it. Or if I do want the cubes for it, it's going to hurt me in other areas. So the game essentially is a game of resource management. And how am I going to effectively use these resources in the game? And that makes it really, really shine. Again, married with the theme of the game, where it's easier to take off people's political cubes, but they're military cubes. You kind of got to go through a little process. That's really cool. I really had fun with this. I think it's a smart game. Again, I need to play it with another player to get that hidden information, outguessing the other person aspect that I love from Fort Sumter. But I really think this is a smart game. Do I think it's better than Fort Sumter? Well, potentially. Again, I think I'd have to play it two-player. I will say this. I think it's going to come down to, should I get Fort Sumter or should I get Red Flag Over Paris? Really, it's going to come down to theme. And so for American audiences, they're probably going to go with Fort Sumter. But I think, I don't know that you need both of them. I think they're close enough together that I don't know that you need both unless you really like both themes. But having said all this, Red Flag Over Paris is a great game. I had a lot of fun with. I'm hoping to, again, play it again in the future with a living human opponent. So with all that in mind, let me just say a recommendation for the discriminating gamer for Red Flag Over Paris is buy it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We'd ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. I'd also ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to please check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history and books on history and fun things like that. Please check that out. Please subscribe. And we'd also ask you to please give a thumb to this video on Board Game Geek. That helps us out a lot as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I'm reminded of a story of a German a few years back who goes to France. He wanted to see the sights in Paris. So as he's crossing the border into France, the customs official asked him his name. He told him his name. He said, "Where are you from?" He told him where he's from. And they said, "Occupation?" And he said, "No, I'm just vacationing this time."
Please somebody help me on my feet again. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. God knows that I love the